Alright, so today I have moved out here to this front desk. Instead of using the back desk, this is in the front of the store. The reason I'm here is because that air conditioner back there is sodomized and fucked to shit. There was frost and snow on the outside of it. It needs Freon, it needs some TLC. So yeah, back there you could feel the nice heat of New York City summer with no ventilation. And my room, of course, is in the middle, which means that it has no air at all, which it just sucks. Anyway, so this is the sales guy's desk. Was the sales guy's desk. He's not going to be happy when he comes in on Monday and he sees this. Usually he has a perfectly clean table, and yeah. Anyway, so today is how to find a short in a motherboard. Now, people use the word short universally for almost everything. Even when there is no short, people just like using the word because they heard it on television when they were a kid. A short circuit means that instead of the electricity getting from point A to point B, something is sending it somewhere else before it gets there. And the most common short is to ground when an amplifier or a transistor or a processor of some sort is fucked up. Now, here, let me show you what I'm doing with this board. So, as soon as I plug in the charger, let's get a DC in board plugged in here. Alright, let me find a charger. So I'm going to show you what I see. Now, I like to use the multimeter. 99.99999% of the time, you can get by just fine with a multimeter. But what I like about having an oscilloscope is that you can see problems. And seeing problems is pretty cool. The reason that sparked is because I still had these power wires plugged into the power supply, which was on. Anyway, so let me show you what I saw. Alright. Now, long story short, follow along on your schematic for an 820-2915 motherboard. Okay, so right here is supposed to be where ISL 6259 tells these two transistors to turn the 16, 17, 18, whatever volts from the charger into 12.6 volts the computer can actually use. And when I look on my oscilloscope, I see 11.5 volts, but as you can clearly see here, it's not straight. Now that's the thing, again, a multimeter is going to read that as 11 point whatever, moving up and down a little bit, but you're not going to see that clusterfuck. Let me show you an example with the multimeter. Let's see if I can while I'm holding this camera. Hopefully this is close to the end of videos done with a shit camera and no tripod, but we will see. Alright. Yeah, so as you can see, I've got, let's see what I get with the multimeter. As soon as I lay this down there. So the multimeter is a little confused. They can't exactly tell me what it is that's going on. But the oscilloscope tells me a really nice full story because, again, I can see. So it says 11, there we go, 11.6 volts. But you see what it's doing. It's rippling like crazy. And when you zoom in a little more, you actually get something closer to 5 volts. Let's zoom in a little more on this. And now it sees 7, and 0, and 1, and 5. The whole idea here is that it's getting itself all the way up to 20 volts and then going all the way back down again over and over and over again and then starting over and over. Now what this indicates to me is a short to ground. So it starts trying to make the voltage. It realizes, holy crap, if I make this 12 volts right here, I am going to explode because I am sending 12 volts into a short to ground. And then it stops, and then since it's stupid because it's a fucking inanimate object and not something with a brain, it just turns itself right back on again. Now, here's what we're going to do. This is a very heavily populated board. If you think that you are just going to magically with your brain find the short to ground, you are insane. Sometimes you can by following along the components, and sometimes it is common sense. But a lot of the time, you are going to be confused as shit. And one of the reasons everybody goes, "Oh my god, you're a genius! Oh my god, God, you're a genius, you're a sage, you're amazing, is because they think that I'm this omnipotent being that just puts my hand over this thing. And out of the thousands of microscopic little fucking things that I cannot see, of all these little things that you can barely see without a microscope, that I am just magically saying, yes, aha, it is this one over here that you need to replace. And when you replace this one right over here, everything will work again. People just think that I'm some magical sage and some fucking wizard genius because I do that. And no, as I've explained many, many times, I'm a fucking idiot just like you. So I need help just like you in finding this. And here's what I'm going to do, because I'm going to use my brain. And again, my brain doesn't work very well. I haven't ever went to an electronics course. I never passed chemistry and calculus in college. But I have just enough of a brain to come up with an idea on how to find this short. Since the short is to ground and my 12 volt shows up here, that means that if I inject 12 volts right here, that 12 volts is going to wind up on ground because there's a short to ground. Correct? Got it? Eh? Okay. Now, since I'm not trying to turn the computer on, there's not going to be a system load. So, now here's what I'm going to do here. Here's what these two little wires here are for. So what I'm doing is I'm using this shitty old G5 power supply right here. And that G5 power supply's 12 volt rail is attached to the 12 volts here. Now, this brown and white wire is attached to the positive end of a bunch of LED strips that are in my window. So I have the LED strips in the window, which are not on right now, and I also got the window lights off. These are LED strips in the window and the shelves, and those are powered off of usually my sales guy's computer, which has this kilowatt gaming nerd power supply. Now, so I'm gonna plug this little Molex connector into there. And then what I also have is another wire going to the ground wire of my power supply to complete the circuit. So the ground wire of my LED lights here is going to the ground of this shitty old 12, 13-year-old G5 power supply. Now here's what this is going to do. My lights in the window have the positive end attached to ground. I'm sending 12 volts to the 12 volt bus on this board using my power supply. And then the ground of the lights in the window is attached to the ground of my power supply to complete the circuit. So what this is going to do is it's going to rip that fucking 12 volts from the 12 volts that I'm injecting to the ground here, and my LED strips, which there's like 5 or 10 of them in that window, are going to rip that power through whatever is causing the short. And that 5, 10, or 15 amp load that I'm putting through here is going to completely fucking sodomize and decimate whatever it is that is shorting to ground. Because whatever is shorting to ground is going to be carrying all of that 12 volt, all the amps from that 12 volts that's required to light up everything in the window. Now to turn my power supply on without having a computer attached to it, I shove my tweezers in here. So you can turn on pretty much any ATX power supply by shorting the green and the black wire. I say almost any because I am not going to be liable if you wind up fucking killing yourself. Anyway, let's see what we get. So I got my wires plugged in here. I got all that going. And aha. Okay, so here's what I was doing here, by the way, which almost melted the wire. I had the ground of my oscilloscope attached to the ground of the board because I was measuring voltage for you guys. And that was actually sending the 12 volts, which I was sending from this power supply, directly to ground. I am surprised it didn't just pop up and go on fire. So by the way, if you're doing this, don't do any stupid shit like that. And as you can see, all the lights in the window are illuminated very well, including the ones that are outside here. I'll give you a little tour so you can see what this looks like. This is the front of my store. In order to see what the lights look like, I turned the other lights off, but I also got these other LEDs here so that you can see everything clearly. We sell these cheap-ass cases because that's all that people in the East Village want to buy is the cheap $5 cases. And we usually have a lot more laptops in the window. Here I only got this one lonely little laptop in the window. And yeah, those are all the lights. That's the air conditioner, which is, by the way, the reason that I'm up here, above my air conditioner. This is a sign that trolls people who are cheap pricks. A lot of the times when people ask why why is it $80 to fix my phone? I just point. I don't even bother explaining it. I just point and walk away. See that guy? It's very much like the guy that works next door to us, who's cheaper. Okay, coming back to here. Now, unfortunately, I don't have a thermal imaging camera, so I can't, show you this with cool effects. You are just gonna have to take my word for it. But after doing this, I am gonna poke around this motherboard and see where it gets hot. Oh, I almost burned myself here. Okay. And my GPU is boiling. This thing is fucking boiling. And the rest of the machine itself is very cool. So I now know that most likely the short is either in the balls underneath the AMD GPU, or most likely, because those balls never fucking go bad, it is in the actual chip itself. I'm gonna have another video, by the way, on that, explaining that most of the time the problem is in the chip itself, and if you're one of those fucktards that's reballing old shitty GPUs and charging money for them with the 1-month warranty, that you're part of the problems in the laptop repair business. But anyway, that's gonna be for another video. So you'll have to take my word for it that this GPU is boiling hot. Now, I didn't actually have to use my brain there for almost anything. Again, for all of you people saying, did you go to school for this? How do I learn this, that, and the other? You're a genius. I could never be able to do this. Let's keep in mind, did I use any type of mathematical equation to figure this out? No. Did I take out a textbook to figure this out? No. Did I use any words that were more than 3 syllables in explaining how I did this? Maybe, but most likely not. What I did was hook up a couple of wires to a 12-volt circuit that I used to power an LED strip in my window, and then I felt around and went, me cold. Ow, me hand hot now. And now I know exactly what's broken. A 2-year-old could do this, and if a 2-year-old can do this, you can too. Now, the 2-year-old may not be able to replace this GPU, but eventually you'll get the equipment and you'll have everything you need to do it. And that's pretty much it for today. So today was a basic method of finding a short in a motherboard. Now, a couple of things on this method before you go ahead and fuck up your own shit. If you're gonna do this, make sure that the power that you're pushing through matches the power that that can take. Don't inject 12 volts into PP3V42. If you have a short on your 3.42 volt bus, don't inject 12 volts in it, because if you do that, you're gonna fucking break everything on it. And the same, don't put 12 volts in your 5 volt bus, don't put 5 volts in your 3 volt bus. Just don't, because bad things are gonna happen. I have different things around here that I can use that work on 3 volts, that work on 5 volts, that work on 1 volt. So if I want to find a short, I just inject a voltage that circuit would expect to be able to, I expect that circuit would be able to handle, and then after I've done that, I feel around and try to find what's hot. And there are, cooler ways you can do this. You can use a thermal imaging camera to try to find out what's getting hot. If you want to get one that's not a complete piece of dog shit, you are going to be spending a good $7,000 or $9,000 on it. And I can't really advise that at this stage in the game, because if you have a short that is so impossible to find that you don't find it through just heating, just some basic heating up of the board, then you're probably not going to find it with an $8,000 machine, and that $8,000 machine is probably not going to help you very much. So this is just an introduction. Hopefully you learned something, and that's it.